we'll go to the gentlelady from New York, Ms. Tenney, recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here to testify. I had some questions for Mr. Heitkamp, or at least some issues. I too come from a small business community, rural upstate New York, where I actually own a small business in the area, and we've had many issues with access to credit. And one of the problems we have is so many of our small businesses and smaller banks have been displaced because of the regulations and just the huge amount of compliance that we've had to deal with on our business as well. Coming from New York State, which is one of the highest regulatory states, whether you're in banking, small business, high energy costs, taxes, you name it. If there's an unfunded mandate to send to our local governments or schools and our small business community, New York will find it. So part of that question I had, and I was going to ask Mr. Heitkamp, but I can put it to the panel, or specifically would like to say something to address Ms. Wade, because of my family's business and dealing with financing. And one of the problems we've had is trying to get access to capital with banks because of the new regulations. And I find that some of the community banks haven't had an opportunity, are really not in our league anymore. And I just wondered if there's any evidence that you have, and I know you may have spoken on this, and I apologize, but I want to hear it again, if there is other avenues that you've cited or indicated in your testimony that where banks or small businesses are going for credit if it's not to a banking institution. And if you could just highlight a couple of those that maybe other alternative forms of credit as opposed to using a bank.
Sure. Their primary source of funding for expansion or reinvestment in their business is the revenue of the business. So personal financing, savings, borrowing from friends and family if they're new, those are the main sources that they're drawing from. And then it's the bank that they have their primary relationship with is where they're looking to access lending. I think one of the areas that is frustrating for many small businesses in this new banking regulatory scheme post-Dodd-Frank is the area of uncertainty, not knowing why they might not be approved for the full amount that they're asking for, and not having a response from their bank representative being able to explain what if it's paperwork that they're not filing, or why they aren't accessing why they're not able to access all the credit, and not realizing that maybe having a relationship with a secondary bank might be important. But they certainly draw on credit cards. More are looking at online fintech lending options in accessing credit. But for the most part, right now, it's most of their financing is coming from personal savings and revenue from their small business. Yeah,
you just described exactly the circumstance that I myself have been in, maxing out my own personal credit cards and getting second mortgage just to get past some of the cyclical nature of the businesses that we're in. On the fintech, that is something that's becoming talked about often in Washington. And can you just tell me any thoughts you might have on regulation in the fintech space and how that would affect our small business and banking community, in your opinion?
It's still a very small portion of lending for small businesses. More are becoming interested in accessing or learning more about what products are available through fintech. And one of our concerns is over-regulating this area of financing before it develops into something that might be very helpful for the small business community, as they are maybe losing some of the relationships that they have with their small local banks and are forced to bank with larger banks that they have a less successful time accessing credit. So some of that, I think, is spilling over to the fintech arena, and making sure that that's still a viable option is important.
So you're saying that the over-regulation of the fintech business could be causing the inability to get credit on that side?
Well, we're certainly concerned about overregulating of that industry, that where it wouldn't be a viable option for small businesses to access financing going forward.
Thank you. I think I'm out of time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.